Can't handle your big emotions? Today, we're not gonna lie.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of NGL where we talk about the things in life that matter. I'm Natasha.
I'm Zeleny.
And today we're here to talk about a very big part of our lives, specifically our big emotions. And so today I am really excited for our conversation because I think we're going to dig a bit deeper into this topic. We want to find out what it looks like, right? To actually make sense of our big emotions as we grow older, as we mature as adults. And also whether it's all really that bad or whether there's some beauty that comes out of having big emotions. Taking reference from Inside Out, right? We came dressed in the colors of the character we feel most represents us. So we've also invited two friends. We're going to get them to introduce themselves to us as well as why you are dressed the way you are. So why don't you begin?
Hi, my name is Aaron and you can call me Angry Aaron today. I'm dressed in red.
Wow.
Angry now cause Zell took my pillow. I want the red pillow, but she took it away from me.
Sorry, should I return it to you right now? I suddenly feel threatened. Wow, okay, so Aaron is angry.
I'm gasping Geraldine. I'm wearing orange because I completely relate with anxiety from Inside Out.
Wow.
I was like, oh, that's me.
If you hear her gasp, don't be alarmed.
My palms are sweaty now.
Actually,
I'm very nervous.
Me too. So I'm wearing yellow. Everything is yellow. My dress, my cardigan. So very hard to find a Z adjective. But there's apparently zany Zeleny. So it's strangely. Wait, no, it's not strangely. What's it again?
Eccentric.
Jokingly eccentric.
That is you.
I feel joy very intensely. Like sometimes to a point of tears. I don't know how to say. It's like when I eat something, right? Then it's like, wow, it's so nice, right?
Wow.
Yeah, it's like I suddenly like transported into like another world, you know. Or like I remember like when I go to like music concerts, right? And then like, you know, when your favorite band plays your favorite song. Yes. Yeah, so I'm not like sad or nostalgic or anything, but it's just like, oh my gosh, this is my favorite song. It's the best feeling in the world.
Look at her feet.
Okay. I need to remain calm. Okay. Yeah, that's me.
You're holding a red pillow because there is a tinge of anger in you?
Yes, like last time, very long ago, I'm a changed woman now. But last time when I was a student, right, like I was very angry on 2 occasions.
Wow.
Nata, how about you?
Okay, so I came in yellow because I am joy. A lot of the end adjectives are bad, so I will go with non-negative Natasha.
Nice.
I'm even holding a yellow pillow because that's who I am from the inside out. I'm just happy, man. I wake up every day with the glass full and overflowing.
Yeah, and like, okay, I was just gonna say, right, that it's like I actually like joy so much that I would purposely avoid negative emotions.
Wow.
It's like at any point of time, I feel like, okay, it's like gonna be a bit stressful or sad, right? I will psycho myself to think that like I'm okay, like I'm not sad.
That's exactly Joy from the Inside Out movie. She's like shoving sadness and everything else away.
She like cannot wait to get away from sadness, right?
Yeah.
Wait, and you feel it's okay?
I mean, like, it worked for a while until when you reach adulthood, then you realize that all these emotions start catching up to you. It never actually goes away, right?
Yeah, because I watched the movie, right? Then honestly, I was so irritated by sadness, the first movie. I keep asking, like, I was watching with my husband, so I was like, what's her problem? Like, stop ruining everything and stop touching everything. Then he told me, you have a problem. Which I admit I have a problem. So we will delve a little bit deeper into that.
Yes.
So let's begin by hearing more about your big emotion, okay? So we start with Aaron. Aaron, tell us more about your anger.
I think I grew up not being able to differentiate between reacting and responding. I think to me it's like it's not like a black and white, it's just grey. You can't really differentiate. I think growing up my mom reacts, I think the way that she expresses herself is through anger lah. And I recall, I think when I was at home, I'm not too sure what happened. I think it's just a brawl between my mom and my dad. Then I think when my dad left the room, then she started to just swipe everything. She'll scream, then she'll swipe everything off from the cupboard. Wow. So it was quite, as a small kid, it was quite terrifying to see such things happen. Especially during my primary school years. How when you don't do well for your different terms, right, then she will start to shout, scream. She even threw my books all around. You start to realize that the only way to defend yourself is to be angry. So I think I grew up knowing that, okay, so the only way to be more dominant or to able to fight back someone else is to be angry. So angry is the only way out.
How does it come out?
I remember that I was in primary school. Then I think my mom will always want me to do the Chinese. And maybe that's why I don't like Chinese growing up. You know, those kind of like, before you prepare for PSLE, then you have to do
Like
all
10-year series.
Correct. Assessment books. Yes, correct. Assessment books. So I remember, like, I think when I was young, one of the first few times was that I will shout and I'll just toss and throw the book away. Yeah. So I think that's the only way, an outlet for me to express that I'm actually very frustrated. I don't want to do this.
Do you still feel anger quite a bit now as an adult?
Yeah, it's the first quick emotion that I feel. I think one of the ways to indicate I'm angry is more than just the situation, but I think my body will react.
How?
You get, your body will get very hot. Yeah. So before anything else, you actually kind of know that actually if you don't manage it well, you know that what's the outcome. It's gonna be a lash and reacting to
Like we'll shout, is it?
raise my voice. It might create a public nuisance or whatnot, right? Then sometimes I go home, then I will start to try to, when I'm showering, then I'll hit the wall very hard. I'll throw things. Yeah, I'll shout in my room. Sometimes my parents got waken up because like it's very
you're
random
shouting,
because out of
right?
nowhere, right?
Yeah.
So there's certain fits of rage and outbursts, something verbal or something physical to feel better about it at that moment. Yeah.
Oh, so after, let's say you lash out or you punch your toilet wall or something, right? Do you still feel angry after that, or you're able to just move on with the day? Do you still think about what makes you angry?
It's a immediate medication to feel better at that moment, but it doesn't really change any scenario or what you feel. It will still linger.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll come back to your story in a bit, but I just wanted to say firstly, thank you for sharing with so much honesty. I think sometimes anger has a bad name and a bad rep, and in some cases rightly so, because of what comes out in those moments of rage. But we're gonna hear later how you also process and regulate these moments so that it doesn't always have to end up in a bad outcome. And we just want to thank you first for being so honest and vulnerable with your experiences. So let's move to Geraldine. Tell us a little bit more about your anxiety and what usually happens.
Yeah, so like I shared, I am generally very anxious. So a light-hearted example is like every time when I cannot find my phone, I will really panic. And this is something that Nata always laughs at me about, because like, if I cannot find my phone, then I'll like open my bag. Then like, where is it? Where is it? Let me find.
Doctor Strange moving through the multiverse. That's how Geraldine looks like, looking for her phone every 15 minutes.
So yes, my daily life is filled with small little anxious moments. So funny ones like this. Or like even very big ones. So for example, like at one point today, I was just like, can feel my heart beating faster. And then like my chest like kind of
You will feel the
closing
physiological
up.
symptoms of anxiety.
Yeah. Like I was at my desk and then like, I can feel it, like very, very anxious.
Your heart beeping, is it like pumping
Like,
very fast?
sometimes it's like
beating?
beat very fast. Or sometimes it's like closing like a
Like
just
scary.
like my chest closing up.
Yeah.
I try and like go and do something, but like it's still there. Like even though I try and calm down.
How about like things that go through your mind? Because I remember in Inside Out 2, when anxiety had like she had this controller, right? And then there were a lot of scenarios.
All the different scenarios in her head. I was like, completely relate. I feel like in my mind, I'm always thinking of all the different scenarios of how things can go wrong. And usually it's not how things can go right, it's how things can go wrong. 10 different ways.
And then is it like you try to find a backup plan or a solution to each of these scenarios?
Yeah, it's like I always try and predict, but I feel like it's a bit like worry also. So I'll keep trying to predict what will happen, or how can I avoid it, or and I think there was this scene also in Inside Out where like anxiety like suddenly started glitching because she was like trying to go all over the board, and then she just became like like that.
Just spinning around.
And then she like froze, right? She couldn't do anything.
She just froze eventually in that mode.
Yeah.
And I think that's me sometimes also.
Wow.
Something that happens a lot is like, especially when I'm on the train, maybe at work or as I'm going through my day, it's very busy, right? But once I'm on the train to my next place or to back home, then I start thinking about everything. And then I think that's when it hits me very hard.
Does it happen quite naturally for you, overthinking things?
Yeah, I mean, even small things like, the lighthearted one, like my phone. It's like low levels of anxiety through
Is there an underlying motivation for that? So is it like because you don't want to feel sad, you don't want to feel crushed, so you're preparing for the worst case scenario?
Yeah, I like to be prepared, and I like to maybe I think it's like avoiding negative things.
Okay.
So in a sense, like when you share about how joy is like trying to avoid all the negative
Yeah.
things, I think my way of avoiding negative things is like worry and anxiety.
Interesting.
And try to
Yeah.
prepare.
Yeah, trying to
So
prepare,
it
trying to
doesn't happen.
avoid.
So your worst fears don't happen.
Yeah.
Ah.
Trying to make sure it doesn't happen.
Wow.
Actually, adding on from that, not just that, right? I think that sometimes overthinking also will accumulate to anger as well. Yeah, because like when you overthink a situation and people, right, then it builds up a lot of emotions, a lot of anger. And I think eventually that's why it's easy to end up making very silly mistakes and actions lah. Because
Yeah.
because if you can't control it, then you will just immediately want to have a resolution and settle score lah.
Like
Immediately.
you feel you
Yeah.
make assumptions and jump to conclusions quite quickly, is it?
I think sometimes a lot of my anger also comes from similar to what Geraldine mentioned. Like you try to fill in the gap for what you do not know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Then that because like my first big emotion is anger, right? So it does like generate a lot of anger and
Like you think the worst of
you think the worst,
the
yeah, and
person.
you need to solve it immediately lah. Yeah.
Do you think that these like instinctive thought patterns or emotions, right, were something you learned from your environment along the way? I mean, for Aaron, you did share
I was
like,
just
it was your
gonna
upbringing.
ask Geraldine.
Yeah, like
if-
for Geraldine, is it something that was in your home environment or like, you know?
Actually, when you were sharing, I mean, about your mom, then I was thinking back, yeah, I think my mom wasn't very angry, but she was also like quite worried, quite emotional growing up. So I think maybe it's like it rubs off somehow.
You're conditioned through that.
It's
right?
like that's like an early emotion that
Yeah.
maybe I was exposed to. Yeah, which I didn't really think of until you shared also.
Right.
Yeah.
Zell, do you relate with their stories?
Okay, so I feel like I relate a little bit with Aaron. That's why I have the red cushion. I don't have an entire like red dress, but just cushion. So I think for me, instead of overthinking, right, I feel like what triggers my anger at that time was more of one thought. Yeah, so it's like my brain, my entire psyche like zooms into that one thought. And yes, it's maybe an assumption about the person. And it just like makes me so angry. And actually anger is really very scary.
Hey, can you describe the whole physiological
Okay,
experience?
I felt I was possessed. Okay, so
Tell us that story.
so the background is I was in university and we had to group with people that we didn't really know for group project. So we had 3 of us as friends, and then we grouped together with 2 other guys. So one of the guy, right, like he's just a talker. He like talks a lot, but he never pulls his weight. And we put up with him for the entire semester already. So I think it's a bit like, okay, we already very annoyed.
Hands up.
It's pent up, yeah. But there was a like last straw, like breaking point, where he said that he told us that he couldn't attend this particular meeting because he had to go for another meeting. So I remember, I think we discussed until we missed our lunch. So we only headed to the food court much later, about like 3+ p.m. So when we went there, right, guess who I saw?
You saw him at the food court.
He was sitting at the food court, right, eating with a girl.
Oh my
Then I was
god.
like, this is definitely not the group project he's told us that he's gonna go for. So
It's on another project lah.
Kind of
It's a different kind of project
I
he's
tell
on.
you, right, like okay, so you know in the movies, right, like when have you all seen those kind of scenes where suddenly everything fade to black? You know, like they have even so visually, right? Like I forgot I was at the food court.
No,
and
you
it
really
was,
felt that?
yeah, as in like everything like just blur, you know, like
Oh,
what's it
wow.
called? The camera angle. So I only saw
It's like
his
you
Zoom in
focus
lah.
lah, you
vision.
focus on the
Yeah,
big-
everything was blur. And then after that, the noise also, because food court very noisy, right? Like a lot of students. But like, it was just like white noise. I even forgot my friends were there. We were in a room, in a place where there's no windows, no one. So it's like I can do whatever I want to him and like, there'll be no consequence. Yeah, so I went up, right? Then, I don't know why, but I think it's really God's grace that I did not like punch him. If not, I think it'll be very, very bad. But I remember I just like asked him, I was like, do you know that the past 1 hour when you're eating, all of us were working very hard to cover your part that you didn't even do? Like, you are the worst group project mate ever. Like, nobody should group with you. We're gonna like mark you down our peer review. You don't deserve to be a like. Then I was like, oh, you're not a man because a man will not do these kind of things. I think only after I said everything, right, then after that the noise, the ambient noise, everything started coming back.
Wow.
Like a movie.
then I was like, okay, I'm very hungry already. I'm gonna go.
Too much energy being angry.
Yeah. So after that, right, when I thought about what just happened, right, I felt so bad. I was like, oh my gosh, I turned into this monster that I didn't even know. And I think the scariest thing is like, you don't even realize, like now I can understand like why when you're experiencing an intense emotion, right, there is no way you can think logically or rationally. Even when someone else, tries to talk to you, or like someone tries to hold you back. Then from that day on, I was 20 years old. And then I say, okay, I'm not going to get angry anymore because this is very scary. I don't know how to manage this emotion.
It scared you, the anger.
I think it scared my friends also.
Hey, Zelda, I have a question. Because you say you're always happy, right? Do you think it's just a cover up for unprocessed, deeper emotions?
Ooh.
Wow.
That's deep.
Okay, it's therapy right now.
Because the fact that you can access such a deep anger
Yeah,
is very different, what?
I
From
feel
the
that
normal
maybe
happy self.
part of it is that, now maybe I try my best to not even allow myself to go into that space. I know like I grew up like very happy-go-lucky.
Okay.
Yeah. So it would take a lot of me to get angry. So I felt like, like what Geraldine said, right? Like it became rage because like
really
it
something
was
broke
pent
lah.
up lah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pent up. We didn't talk about it earlier and all that. So and I was hungry. But I think when you hungry, you sure angry one. It's like
They say it's a hungry man, it's an angry man.
right.
Yeah.
Angry. But I feel like nowadays, it did like make me think that it is easier to be happy than to be angry. So
Less
like,
troublesome.
not so tiring and not so much damage. You don't need to do damage control.
Actually, I really relate also because I feel like for me, because growing up, I feel like I was very emotional growing up, and especially like with the worry and anxiety. I mean, when I was younger, I didn't even know the word anxiety, but I knew that I was like emotional and like I feel like the outcome was always not very good.
You didn't
'Cause-
like that emotion of yours,
Yeah,
is it?
I feel like being emotional sometimes like sets me off. Like
What were some of the outcomes you remember?
I think like especially like negative emotions, whether like anxiety or sadness, like it just felt so bad. Like experiencing it just felt so horrible that I just like like what you said. Maybe I think for you you felt scared of it, but for me I just felt like maybe my emotions are a bad thing.
Did anyone tell you guys that your emotions were a bad thing?
No.
Really?
No. Yeah. So I think my parents will always tell me say that you are easily get angry. You're in Chinese say my mom will say that 你像我.
Oh,
Right.
she sees
So
it lah in
yeah,
herself.
so
Okay,
yeah,
like her.
correct. So
yeah.
there's no like it's bad or what. It's just that
Neutral.
you are similar to my character.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they never scolded you, is it, for being angry or I don't
We
know.
cannot say because I also like that.
Perhaps.
Yeah, because
so
my mom and my brother are both a bit more short fused. So my mom also says the same thing to my brother, but she cannot say him because she also
She
does
also
the exact same
gets
thing.
angry.
Yeah. So I can relate to your story that you actually somehow like you feel like you suddenly become like a monster. Yeah, like you don't know yourself anymore. Like is this really me? But yet I think growing up then it becomes something that you're so used to. I'm so used to being a monster. Yeah.
It
So it
becomes
becomes you're very well versed with it. Yeah. So to you can't tell you're a monster or not a monster.
Have you ever gotten into like a very bad outcome because of your anger?
When I got into a relationship, now my current wife, then back then, when I was still in relationship, right? Then, because of my short fuse, my anger management, most of the time we always get into a lot of arguments and fight lah. And I think most of the time it's because I always react very quickly. Without understanding or empathizing, I would just immediately react because of certain things that doesn't go the way that I ideally seem that it should go a certain way lah. Yeah.
What's like a story of your anger?
In relationship.
One of the most vivid one that I can is always just ingrained. It's I think starting of last year when we went with a few friends to JB lah. I think it was a weekend. So Sundays usually you will want to rush back to the checkpoint because like people have work and stuff like that the next day, right? So I remember that she was walking very very fast, and a few of us was just strolling lah. Maybe perhaps doesn't make sense to me that how come need to rush like so kanchong for what like. Why like typical Singaporean so kiasu? Anyway, we'll still head back ma. It's not as if like we won't head back to Singapore or whatnot, right? Then I think because usually a lot of people at a custom, then somehow then you're separate ways. my partner actually called, like, asked like, where are we? Then I think I start to fuse and get angry lah. Like, how come y'all walk so fast? Is it y'all don't care? Y'all so kanchong for what? Then I think I started to react very badly. I think my tonality also not good lah, because I raised my voice. Then I think it got to a very heated argument lah.
This was all over the phone
Oh, over the phone.
with other people around.
Yes.
Did everything fade to black?
Yeah. It was just her. It's just me and her, and I got to get this across.
Wow.
This is what I
Because
feel.
as you walking, you're already fuming already.
Yeah, I think it's an accumulation. Like, you know that you're angry already, then there's a lot of assumption. I think that's what happened. I totally can relate with Zell, because you never put yourself in the other person's shoes.
Yeah, it's all tunnel vision. Right?
Correct. It's just all
what you
tunnel
think.
vision. You just want to let it out, and you don't know the consequences. You just want to let it out at the moment. Yeah, consequences come later. At the moment, just let it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Frozen like to
yes.
say let it go, but I don't fully
Let it
I don't agree with it. No, after you look back, right, actually it's very silly.
Yeah, very
because
small matter, right?
Yeah,
actually.
small matter, and it's like, wow, it shouldn't happen, because it's like 2 or 3 months away from my wedding. So I think it became such a small thing, become such a big thing, right? Then, wow, I think we kind of had space for a while, and then I actually overthink leh. Then I was like, oh no, what if like my big day don't actually happen because of this thing? Then
Because we go JB.
yeah, because of this JB. Then
Because you walk slow lah.
no lah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think you'll regret lor. Like what Zell mentioned, that wow, actually, how come I become such a monster and I do such a thing?
Was it when you realized that, like, I don't know, you needed to do something about it?
I realized that the consequence is big, and how much most of the time when you are angry, you only consider yourself. Yeah,
Like thinking about your point of view.
Correct. Just my preference, what I feel. And it's not fair, because like when you're angry, most of the time your emotions become your facts, and I just want to let it out.
Oh. Yeah.
Actually, it's true. I really relate. It's like when you are feeling something very deeply, then that is like facts already.
Yeah, it's a
like-
reality, right?
Yeah, it's like if
Same
I'm
for
worried
the-
about something, it doesn't matter how feasible or unfeasible it is. Like I just like, okay, that's gonna happen, and I need to avoid that.
So is it a bit like you also, if someone tries to reassure you that, oh, this thing won't happen,
it doesn't really
kinda-
help. I just like, oh, no lah. It's still very bad.
So
Yeah.
what helps? Like, is it letting it pass? Because for some people, when I guess the wave passes, actually you can realize that maybe
how do you
not
get
so
out of
bad.
anxiety?
Yeah, but for you, is it like once you feel it actually doesn't pass?
You know, like I was sharing just now, I think like growing up, I always felt like maybe my emotions are not so good. And I always try and like be very logical about it. I would think of like, okay, what am I worried about? And how can I break it down? And how can I be logical about it? Like, okay, there's nothing to be worried about and everything. I mean, I think that helped, because that kind of helped me to blend like my logical and my emotional side of things together. But at the same time, I also feel like, because I kept trying to think like it's very bad, along the way, it's like learning how to sit with it also. And sit with it in a way that is healthy.
How do you sit with your emotion?
So I think a few years back, I tried out counseling. So the story is quite funny, because like my company offer free counseling. Then I was like, okay lah, free one, just go and try. Like,
Counseling very expensive if you pay
yeah,
yourself.
I wasn't in a very bad state or what, but I was like, okay, since it's free, I want to try out lah, see
Yeah.
what it can offer, see what I can learn. So something that, and in that process, something that the counselor was telling me is that like, actually there's no good or bad emotions. Because whenever I tell her about what I'm feeling,
You will say it's bad.
I always
right?
say it's bad. Yeah, it's like, oh, it's very bad. I don't want to feel this. But what she said was like, our emotions serve a purpose. So maybe if I'm very anxious, it means that, you know, maybe I need reassurance. Maybe I need a different perspective. If I'm angry, it means maybe something that was important to me was affected. Like when she said that, right, I just felt so like, wow, I never really thought of it that way, because I always just thought like emotions are bad, I should be more logical, but actually there's a beauty to it also. Like in this world, I mean, we have emotions for a reason. Yeah.
So it's like emotions is like a signpost to either something that you value or something that you need at that moment.
Maybe like in that
Yeah.
moment to not reject yourself so quickly.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting thought, because like at least amongst my social circles, we do kind of see certain emotions as positive and certain as negative. Lah. I mean, I think that's the case for a lot of people.
And nobody will say, why are you so happy? Like, can you stop being so joyful?
And when you're angry, you will ask me, why are you so happy?
Yeah, what's so good about the morning?
Yeah. But yeah, you see, so like if you're around a person who, for example, is always like crying, easily angered, or easily sensitive, most people would describe that as unideal lah. Versus like when it's a person who most of the time more happy-go-lucky, even in children, you might be tempted to say this is an easier child to manage. And I also wonder whether that's where it comes from, you know. Sometimes like you see people in their younger years, right? Then you feel like, wow, this person very out of control because your emotions are so
or
big.
difficult to be with, right?
Yeah, versus like now I have a nephew who's like 3 years old. He's generally like happy-go-lucky. And to be honest, I am tempted to feel like actually he's quite an easy child.
Yeah.
Versus like if he was like crying all the time, be only angry, then like always wailing, right? It's a bit hard to manage a situation like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it's interesting lah that she would say, but it's quite true ma, because when you watch Inside Out, even from like her toddler years, the main character Riley already had the anger character, right? Yeah.
Actually, then on that note, right, is there ever anything that you feel like good about anger, or how has it helped you?
I think anger itself is not always just negative. I feel angry because like I think my colleague was helping to cover, I think it was last year during the December period, because usually December period people go on leave, right? So she was helping to cover for projects that she's unfamiliar with. Then I think that when we got into a call with clients, then in front of all my bosses and the team, then I think the client actually pointed her out and shame her and saying that her work is not good, etc., etc.
Oh,
no.
So I think at the moment I actually felt angry for her because like, hey, this is very unjust.
Yeah.
Like people is covering, you don't see behind the scenes. Then the only thing you can say is based on your first impression, and her work is not good.
Yeah, which is interesting because just earlier you were talking about how in your anger you sometimes struggle to put yourself in another person's shoes, you struggle with empathy. But now we see a flip side where actually when you exercise the empathy, sometimes it can come out as, in some sense, a righteous anger for that person going through the injustice lah. Yeah, lor. And you see a lot of the social causes. I feel like for people who are championing these social causes, it's very hard to say that I'm not angry about the injustice that's happening, you know. A lot of times it is that anger over the injustice that also drives their passion, their intensity in fighting for some causes. And it's not a bad thing, ma. Yeah.
How do you like do that whole responding now when you get angry?
I think similar to Geraldine, I can't do it alone lah. Like you probably need like people around, like counselors. I mean, I'm fortunate to have there are no people that they are trained with counseling. So I think that helped a lot to actually learn certain tips. How can I better regulate my anger? You have to choose whether or not do I really want to learn to manage my anger, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's just that thought like, wow, I always so easy for me to become like a monster and I just lash out. Actually, what will things look like if I don't look like a monster? So I think that really kind of helped to like, okay, perhaps I should just try out certain things and start small and see how. It's like investing like that. The more you compound, right? The more you invest, the more it compounds and it generates and it helps. You're more confident to kind of like tackle situations or when people can get difficult with you. Yeah. What I do is that I had this thing that I was taught to have to breathe, to control my breathing whenever I get angry. Because when you take deep breaths, I can't remember how many times lah, but when you take deep breaths, sometimes they say it can be 7, 8 times, but it depends on individual, right? Because if you're very angry, I think 8 times is not enough. Maybe you need 80 times of breath. Yeah, so
Actually, by the time you finish 80 breaths, you forget
already,
about it. The person you're angry with like really left.
That's the reason why he breathed 80 times.
They always say I count
no, you'll
to
be
10,
on
right?
mothership. I'll say, this guy is weird. I don't know what he's
Just
doing.
stand there
Standing in
breathing.
traffic like...
But it helps you, the deep breathing.
When you can control your breath, right, you're actually reminding yourself that actually, Aaron, you can control your anger. You don't have to always let it out.
Yeah, actually when you're sharing that, I was reminded of like maybe different ways that I've come to feel my emotions better. So like things like, I think over the years I started this habit of journaling because I feel like journaling is like this safe space for me to feel. Because sometimes there are times when I feel and it's like very not great, right? But when I'm like really writing it down, and I think it's like making it tangible. Like everything that I feel here is like in my head, right? But when I write it out, it's like, okay, it becomes words.
Right.
It becomes things that I can see on this piece of paper.
Yeah.
And it makes my feelings concrete.
Okay.
I organize, like, actually, what exactly am I feeling?
Yeah.
You know, what is it telling me? What do I need? And just being more aware, I think. And it's not like I escape my emotions also, but I give myself that like 10-15 minutes to just like write it out, feel it in that moment, and then go on with my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question for you guys, and maybe for Zell as well. Given that you guys are all married, right? Do y'all fear that your big emotion will affect your partner or your family? And I ask this because I think we see many cases where people's big emotions do. So even like for Aaron, right, as you come up today and you talk a lot about your anger, thankfully you have found some way to manage it, right? But we see so many stories where a person's anger really can have such detrimental effects on their partner, on their family. For Geraldine, I'm not sure. Maybe anxiety sometimes can feel a lot more inward and personal, but I'm wondering also whether there are ways in which you feel it does affect your partner and family, and how you all navigate that whole thing.
I think at home you become even, I don't know, I think it's worse than monster. I don't even know what to call yourself anymore. Because I remember that I sometimes get angry with my wife to the extent that, wow, I remember that I will scream, go in the room, I scream, I shout. Sometimes scream and shout until I cry. That kind
She's
of
not
thing.
in the room, or she's in
She's
the
not
room?
like in the living room. There, I think
Oh,
we
like you just need space to lash out.
correct.
somewhere,
Because like accumulate, then I just need a
Right.
space to like, I cannot take it anymore. Like feeling very stressed, thinking a lot of things. I think early stages in marriage, then there's a lot of navigating lah. Then definitely you rub a lot of shoulders. I remember there was once where I was so stressed, and sometimes you feel very helpless. You don't know what to do. And I was very frustrated and angry also with everything lah. I remember I started to just burst. I ran back into our room. I just lie down like a baby. Then I start screaming and crying. Like, I just need to let it out. Yeah, I'm so frustrated.
Was it the first time she see you like that?
Was the first time.
Yeah.
But there are even other occasions where sometimes I need to OT or whatnot. Then I was showering and I couldn't take it. I'm just very angry. Then I will just punch the wall very hard. I think what really changed was when my wife brought up to me that actually she's very scared of me. And that struck a chord in my heart because I realized that I hear of stories in news from people around, like my friends, how their upbringing is like they came from like even very temperamental dads and parents, and end up like how marriages fall apart, how it affected them. I think that really scared me a lot. Like, wow, actually, if I'm not careful, I might go down this route. So I think that eventually helped me to be even more heightened to manage my emotions better.
And how do you and your wife work through this?
I think one of the things that I practice a lot in my marriage is that I cannot really control what's on the outward, what will happen, but I can really control what's inside. So that helped me to better regulate and rationalize. Is it worth it for me to actually start reacting and lashing out? So every time when I don't want to lash out, it reminds me that, wow, the different occasions and instances that I lash out, it always end up very nasty. Yeah, so a lot of things will be in my mind to help me realize that, I don't want to pay a heavy cost. And it's like a time bomb. I don't want to just, because a bomb, when you trigger the bomb, it's not just one person. It's like a circumference, it's like there's an effect. A lot of people get affected. So I learned to appreciate rationalizing instead of just letting my emotion take the wheel. Yeah.
Are there things your wife does to help you also?
Asking me how I feel. Yeah. Because I think asking me how I feel will give me the outlet to have an outlet to kind of share that actually I feel this way right now. But I think along the way, it's just learning to be a bit more independent also and not always relying on people. Like only you need people, then you can better regulate. Yeah, because I also realized that what people hear, right, you cannot unhear. Example, today I say something very unloving.
Yeah.
You cannot unhear it. And it doesn't benefit the person that's hearing. So it's better to consider that and to actually either type it out. Like sometimes I type it out on my phone. If not, I write it out on my notepad in my laptop. If not, I'll just sit down and really take a step back to actually regulate and think.
Like, how come I feel this way? What do I feel about myself? Sometimes it surfaces out from because I feel shortchanged. I'm insecure. That's why I'm reacting in this way. Yeah, I feel left out. That's why I'm like that. So there are many different things. So I think those things help me to better rationalize. Actually, it's not the person's fault. Perhaps it's just an issue and things that I need to deal with on my own.
That's a very good thought, I feel. Because like, you really like dig inward, right? To not just notice what it is that made you angry, but what it is that was triggered within you. And actually a lot of that is an internal work that you need to do. Of course, others can learn to be more sensitive, but I think what I really appreciate about your approach is you don't just externalize the blame and say that it's other people's fault for making you angry, but you do a lot of that internal work so that you are in control of how you respond and react to things also. Actually, one of the things that I'm getting from this conversation, right, I feel it's helpful for all of us to take on that approach, whether or not you see a very particular big emotion. For example, myself, right? Like, even though I may identify as a like generally happy person, like I cannot use that as a lazy excuse to then say, then I don't need to think about how I deal with anger, how I deal with anxiety, how I deal with sadness. As human beings, we all have emotions. We all have emotional moments, right? And it is still on me to regulate and navigate, for example, even in the rare moments that I'm angry or I'm anxious, right? How do I speak to the people around me? How do I lash out? Do I just take the majority of the happy times and then use that as like then those moments don't matter? Point of reflection for anybody to just think about like, actually, who do I want to be to the people around me? How do I want them to feel around me? And from there, then we figure out how we deal with our big emotions or small emotions.
I feel like I really relate with that also, because growing up, I think I always feel things very internally, but after being together with my husband, I feel that's when I realized like, actually my anxiety or my big emotions actually affects other people also, and that makes me like, I feel like it's very sobering. It's like a really big wake up call. So you asked, right, how our big emotions affect our marriage or the people around us. I think one thing that happened very, very recently is that because I just got married this year, and then we also were doing our house renovation, and we also bought a house. So actually, we are super broke. There has been no savings since the start of the year, only spending. Bank account balance, very sad. And I think that's something that really triggered my anxiety. Like, I'm super anxious about it. So because we finished reno very recently, so there was this one day after, I think it was a weekday, so it was already like a long working day, and then we went out for dinner with my in-laws, and then when we were on the way home, like it was already very late, and I don't know why I suddenly started thinking about it. I was telling my husband like, we should really, start tracking our spending now that we are finally free of all these renovation costs, because it was a very long day, right? So I think, I can't remember that exactly, but at some point my husband was telling me like, we can talk about this another time. And we were actually like on the way home, so we were in the train actually, inside the carriage. But because I was already so anxious and I was so frustrated also, I was like, no, we are going to talk about it now. I need to get it out now. We need to talk about it now. So like in the train, while we were standing and holding the railing, we were talking about it. I think in my emotions, I was also just being very mean. I was saying a lot of very hurtful things about him, like, when was the last time you talked about finances? Do you even know how much we have in our account? Why you still keep wanting to buy this and that? So a lot of very aggressive kind of things also.
Like quite cornered.
Yeah. And in that moment, I just felt like I cannot let it go. But I think afterwards, when I calmed down a bit and we were talking and I hear his perspective also, then I was really like, wow, my big emotions don't just affect me, but it affects the people around me. It affects how I treat other people. And I felt like for me, that was the most sobering thing. I think I will always still feel anxious about certain things, but more of, how do I feel it in a way that's a bit more healthy? It doesn't make me lash out at people.
As somebody who doesn't really think of myself as very emotional, I wouldn't call myself a person with big emotions. I feel it would be responsible of me to still learn how to manage these emotions, right? Instead of just like, treating it as a freak accident. It's like, most of the time I'm happy lah. So this one moment that I respond badly, it's okay lah. Yeah. So I feel actually what you two are displaying is a lot of hard work that has produced some emotional maturity in the way you deal with your emotions now lah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, no,
On your way.
No, I was just about to say, I feel very encouraged to hear both of your work, really taking a lot of effort and intentionality to do that inner work. Because I think for me, right, after that episode of Rage, right, I actually swung to the other extreme, So it's like, I feel like these kind of negative emotions are so bad that I really want to avoid them at all costs. Yeah, so sometimes I think maybe I feel joy the most because maybe that's the only thing I allow myself to feel.
Right.
Yeah. So anytime maybe I feel like, okay, this could potentially be a stressful situation or something that might make me feel impatient or towards anger, right? I will just emotionally cut myself off. I felt like my internal work was to be okay to sit with my emotions, and especially the negative ones also. And I think it really did help me to become more patient and more empathetic as a person to the relationships in my life. So actually, I'm glad that all this inner work started before I got married, because now when I relate with my husband, right, I think we do relate in a more healthy way as well, rather than just happy all the time. I used to think that the best kind of relationship is when there's no quarrels, got no issues. Then I was I'm just living in a bubble, the bubble that I was living in my 20s. Yeah, so I feel like if I didn't sit with my emotions, right, if I didn't begin that inner work, I feel like in my marriage, right, I will probably just be so suppressed. Yeah, and maybe one day it just becomes rich out of nowhere, you know? Yeah, or maybe one day I'll just okay, I don't think this is working out.
Yeah, and to him it will have come out of nowhere.
It will be so shocking, right? Yeah, and
it's not uncommon though, I think, for people.
And the worst thing is I cannot even explain why. And that is so scary, right? You can't even share why you feel a certain way. Yeah, so I felt like I didn't want to go there because it's not fair to the people around me also.
Yeah, I realized what you shared, it's almost a different end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Because me and Aaron, we feel things very deeply.
Yeah.
But for you, it's you're afraid of feeling or you just don't want to feel. But actually, emotions is really what God has created, and it's really a part of life. We need it to feel empathy. We need it to connect with others. And we need it just to feel the wholeness and the beauty of life.
Wow.
And I think even though, yes, definitely there are times that, when our emotions master us or when we unleash our emotions on other people, I think those are maybe unhealthy ways of feeling and coping with our emotions. But actually, when we learn to really cope with it, actually emotions can be so beautiful.
Yeah.
I think that's something I really believe in.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the conversation today. I feel like all of you brought such good perspectives along that spectrum of feeling things deeply, feeling different things deeply. I guess just a disclaimer for today's episode is also that we did not think that we were going to accurately represent the entire spectrum of emotions because I guess feeling emotions, the reason why we feel certain things, how it's expressed, it's something that is so nuanced, it's so layered, it's so contextual that everybody experiences it differently. But I think what we spoke about today was really your own experience and how you managed to navigate it and I learned so much from it. So if there are other emotions that you feel are interesting topics to talk about or you really, really wish we represented a bit more, you can drop us a DM, you can drop us a comment, and we will find speakers who can resonate with that to come and sit on this couch for free therapy also. So we really hope that you enjoyed this discussion. I personally did. And if you like this episode, you can give us a like, you can subscribe to our channel. You can also send it to somebody who you feel might really enjoy something like that. Maybe they managed to properly verbalize some things that your friends could never say for themselves. If you like more of our episodes, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find us on socials at Instagram and TikTok at ngl.people. You can find us on Telegram, where we show our behind-the-scenes footage as well as information about our upcoming episodes and events. So with that, we've come to the end of the episode for today, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye!
Bye.